Jaya Srimad Bhagavatam. All verse some devotees, all verse some devotees, all verses some devotees, all verse Shiva. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 3, further inquiries by Vidura. Chapter 7, text number 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Shri Shubhavacha.
Shri Shubhavacha.
Saitam Chorito Chatram.
Saitam Chorito Chatram.
Tattva Jigyashuna Munihi.
Tattva Jigyashuna Munihi.
Prajaha Bhagavaschita.
Prajaha Bhagavaschita.
Smayam Eva Gata Smayaha.
Smayam Eva Gata Smayaha.
Shri Shubhavacha.
Shri Shubhavacha.
Saitam Chorito Chatram.
Saitam Chorito Chatram.
Tattva Jigyashuna Munihi.
Tattva Jigyashuna Munihi.
Prajaha Bhagavaschita.
Prajaha Bhagavaschita.
Smayam Eva Gata Smayaha.
Smayam Eva Gata Smayaha.
Shri Shubhavacha.
Shri Shubhavacha.
Saitam Chorito Chatram.
Saitam Chorito Chatram.
Tattva Jigyashuna Munihi.
Tattva Jigyashuna Munihi.
Prajaha Bhagavaschita. Smayam Eva Gata Smayaha. Word for word, Shri Shukavacha. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Saha, he, Maitreya Muni, Itam, in this way, Chodataha, being agitated, Chatra, by Vidura, Tattva Gigashuna, by one who was anxious to inquire to know the truth. Munihi, the great sage, Pratyaha, replied, Bhagavachitaha, God conscious, Smayan, wondering, Eva, as if, Gatasmayaha, without hesitation. Translation by Bhagavatam Swami Slipavadaki. Translation, Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, O King, Maitreya, being thus agitated by the inquisitive Vidura, at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God conscious. Please repeat. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, O King, Maitreya, being thus agitated by the inquisitive Vidura, at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God conscious. Purport. Since the great sage Maitreya was filled with God consciousness, he had no reason to be astonished at such contradictory questions by Vidura. Therefore, although as a devotee he externally expressed surprise as if he did not know how to reply to those questions, he immediately became perfectly settled and properly replied to Vidura, Yasmin vigate sarvam evam vigatam bhavati. Anyone who is a devotee of the Lord knows about the Lord to some extent, and devotional service to the Lord makes him able to know everything by the grace of the Lord. Although a devotee may apparently express himself to be ignorant, he is full of knowledge in every intricate manner. So we're hearing Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, and he's narrating the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. So the question that was asked, there was a few verses ago, that Marge Pritchard asked the Lord as the super soul, Vidura asked Maitreya, the Lord as the super soul is situated in every living being's heart. Why then do the living entity activities result in misfortune and misery? So that's a reasonable question, that Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. Why does the living entity suffer and have a life of misery? So why? Why is that? Krishna's within the heart.
Because we want it.
Because of free will, yes. Because we choose to forget Krishna. As a result, we come, instead of being under the influence of the spiritual energy, the Haladina Shakti personified by Srimati Radharani, we choose to be under the influence of the material energy personified by Durga Devi. So Durga Devi is the prison keeper, and she appears carrying, what does she carry in her hand? A trident. How many points on that trident? 3. And they represent it could be the 3 modes, but the tree klesha, the threefold miseries. So miseries inflicted by material nature, miseries inflicted by other living entities, and miseries inflicted by one's own mind and body. So because we choose to do that, Krishna or Super Soul, he doesn't interfere with our free will. He's simply the witnessing, like Prabhupada gives the analogy. I think it's mentioned in the Svetasvata Upanishad, but like the 2 birds in the tree, that one bird is witnessing, the other bird is simply eating the fruits of the tree. Sometimes the fruits are sweet, sometimes they're bitter. But that witnessing bird, the Super Soul, is simply waiting for the so-called enjoying bird to establish a relationship. So this was the nature of the question that Vidura was asking. And in one sense, we're hearing that Maitreya was a little bit confused, because Vidura, he's a highly learned person. He's inquiring from me this question. So yesterday, Vidura was saying, my mind is greatly illusioned by the distress of this nescience. And today, Maitreya responds that even though it seems he was a little bit, says agitated, astonished, nevertheless, he responded. So one lesson we can get from this is that Maitreya was very humble. He didn't say, oh, you don't know? I know. You've come to the right person. I can give you all the answers. He didn't respond like that. So it's a sign of humility that Maitreya was thinking, this is another learned soul. He's simply given me an opportunity to speak about Krishna. So this is one thing we can understand. So sometimes it's said that the wealth of the Brahmanas is austerity, but it's also humility as well, that one who's following a Brahminical lifestyle, Vaishnava lifestyle, one of the jewels that they're decorated with is humility. So we see that different stories in the Bhagavatam basically originate from one of Krishna devotees becoming proud. So one, of course, is Govardhan Hill, where Indra become overwhelmed with pride, thinking that his Indra Puja has been stopped by this talkative young boy. Who does he think he is? And but the whole arrangement there for Krishna to break Indra's pride, and Krishna encourage his father and other cowherd men to, instead of Indra, worship Govardhan Hill. So it all come about by pride. But there's different sort of, I guess, allegorical stories. There was one old lady living in a village, and she had a rooster. And she was very proud of that rooster because just before the sun rose, the rooster would start crowing. And she was very proud, also argumentative. She wasn't a very popular person in that village. But she developed the mentality that because of my rooster crowing, the sun is coming up. That's how she was thinking, that my rooster is causing the sun to come up, and you people should appreciate that. If I wasn't here, what would you do? No sun, you'd be in darkness, your crops couldn't grow. So, but anyway, so there was, a lot of, and anyway, one day she got in a big fight with all the villagers and said, okay, that's it, I've had enough, I'm going, and serves you right. And she took her rooster and she went off, long distance, about 500 kilometres to a new place. And the next morning, the rooster started crowing and the sun started to come up. Said, just see what my rooster can do. All these other villages, in my old place, serves them right. They're suffering, they're sitting in darkness. So, this is all out of pride that, these things are going on. There was another story also that there was one CEO of a big company, and he was very, very busy all day, early morning to late night, running around. And when he's in the office, he's getting people to do this and getting the people to do that. And he's thinking, if I wasn't here, things wouldn't go on. And everybody's depending on me. But he was getting super stressed out. And when he'd go home, his wife is saying, do this and do that. And so he's getting no rest, getting so stressed. And so one time he went to the doctor and said, Doctor, I'm very stressed. Give me something. Give me a pill or something. I wonder, I'm just getting too stressed. So the doctor asked, so why are you stressed? Says, because I'm a CEO. I'm, managing the office. If I wasn't there, unless I'm there, nothing would happen. And the doctor said, well, you just have to slow down a little bit. He said, but I can't slow down. Nothing would happen if I'm not there. And he said, well, you're coming to me for some advice. This is what I recommend. You do as you like. This is what I recommend. Take just one morning off, Saturday morning, and go to somewhere peaceful and just sort of sit down and relax. And this man, he didn't want to do that, but eventually he was convinced. But where is it peaceful? Everywhere I go, everybody's asking me to do this. They're depending on me like that. He said, so the doctor, go to the graveyard. It's a very peaceful place there. So he thought that was a bit unusual. But anyway, he took the doctor's advice. He went to the graveyard and just by himself, and he just sat down. But he was just so passionate. He couldn't just sit down and do nothing. His mind was racing. What are they doing in the office? They're messing everything up. And so he started walking around the graves, and he saw, he recognized some of the names. Oh, I know him. He used to be a manager of this, and this one used to be a CEO of this, and some of the graveyards, dearly departed father, husband, office manager, different things like that. And so anyway, after some time, he went back to the doctor, and the doctor said, "So you went to the graveyard? Did things help?" And the man said, "Why did you send me to the graveyard?" I said, "Well, when you were there, did you read anything? You read the tombs?" I said, "Actually, I did. And yeah, there were some office managers, CEOs, some of the people I recognise." And the doctor said, "Yes, these people were all very busy men. And now they're gone. The world's still going on." You know? So the man got this great realization. Actually, he's thinking he's doing everything out of pride. And of course, motor passion, because passion is born out of pride. Or pride is born out of motor passion. But he's thinking he's doing so many things. And I was listening to a class on this verse while I was cooking breakfast. So this is some of the stories that were coming up. And there was one more allegorical story. This lizard was on the ceiling, upside down on the ceiling. And, we see these geckos running around, they do that. And so day after day, he's just, there. And then some of his friends, the spider and the beetle, they're coming around and say, all you're doing is just on the ceiling. Well, you come for a walk. So, no, I can't. If I go anywhere, this ceiling will fall down. I said, no, it's just for a little while. No, I can't. If I move, what will happen to this? So we get very proud of these sort of things. And even devotees, we get caught up in it. My service is so valuable. If I go, what will happen? I have to be here. You get very proud of that. And sometimes other devotees even encourage it unknowingly that, someone gives they say, "Oh, you gave such a nice class." And the devotees say, "Yeah, it was nice. I'm a nice speaker." And, so even out of, you sort of develop that idea. Or that, "Oh, Prabhu, you're so humble." And, become proud of that. From humility, pride is coming. So anyway, different examples can be given. But when we come into this world, we start identifying with the body, and then we identify with all the different sense objects, and we're thinking that it's that aphorism that Atmanam Manyate Jagat, that as I'm thinking, so all the world is thinking. Like Prabhupada literally translates that I am moving the sun, I am moving the moon. In other words, that by my effort, everything is going on. So we tend to develop that mentality. But here the example we have with Maitreya, he doesn't think that Vidura is less knowledgeable or less advanced than me. But he's given me a chance to speak about Krishna. So very humbly he starts to reply. And because, of course, Maitreya, he heard the conversation between Uddhava and Krishna, so he was able to answer the questions very nicely. So there's one verse from the Svetasvatara Upanishad 6:23, that unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. So that example from Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Lord Chaitanya, he's in South India, and he sees one Brahmana trying to read Bhagavad Gita, but he's illiterate. So how can he read? But nevertheless, he's just trying to do his best, because his spiritual master asked him every day, read Bhagavad Gita, and the other Brahmanas are laughing, making fun. "Oh, how are you reading this Bhagavad Gita?" And but Lord Chaitanya, he said, he inquired about the situation. So the Brahmana said, "Well, this is my instruction, but I can't read." But Lord Chaitanya said, "Well, I noticed that you were crying when you were reading Bhagavad Gita." And he said, "Yes, it's, when I'm holding Bhagavad Gita in my mind, I just see the vision of Krishna taking the role of the chariot, Patasarati, and chariot driver, and he's moving around the battlefield for Arjuna. And when I see that vision, I just come overwhelmed with Krishna's, the humble position he's taken. And so Lord Chaitanya blessed him and said, yes, you are the real reader. You actually understand the actual purport of Bhagavad Gita. So it's not that, we have to be highly learned, but if we're serving Guru and Krishna and the devotees nicely, then automatically the Vedic knowledge is automatically revealed. And it's another verse from the Nectar Devotion that no one can understand Krishna as he is by his blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for the transcendental loving service unto him. So in our conditioned state, our senses are materially conditioned, but as our devotional service develops and our relationship with Krishna develops, those senses become purified. And in that state, we can actually understand Krishna reveals himself within the heart. And another similar verse, 1855, in Bhagavad Gita, one can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service, and one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord. By such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So there's no material prerequisite for spiritual advancement or for performing devotional service. It's simply the desire and the sincerity and the humility that Krishna, please accept my service. And Krishna within the heart, he's very happy to reciprocate and impart into the heart of the devotee everything that's required for him to perform devotional service and ultimately go back to our original home, the spiritual world. So today also happens to be the disappearance day of Ramananda Roy. So Ramananda Roy was a very significant personality in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. It's mentioned in the Gaura Ganadeshtapika, which is a book which it mentions the names of all those devotees who were in Krishna's pastimes, and it describes who they appeared as in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So this is how it goes when Krishna or one of his expansions appears in the world. He brings all his devotees with him. So the Gaura Ganadeshtapika describes who each person was in the different leelas. So Ramananda Roy, he's described as Arjuna. In the Krishna Leela, he was Arjuna. And he was also a gopi in Vrindavan, Ramananda. So two personalities. So sometimes known as Arjuni, Arjunia, different names are given. But so two Arjunas. So, and also Gaura Ganadeshtapika mentions that some people think that Ramananda Roy was also a combination of Lalita Sakhi of Vishaka, who were the two most intimate Sakhis or servants of Radharani. So potentially three people. So how does that actually happen, that there's three personalities? We're not talking about some sort of psychotic multiple personality disorder, something like that. But three persons. So I've spoken to Banu Swami about this, how to understand, and he said according to the activity and the particular mood and emotion that's been reciprocated between the devotee and in this case Lord Chaitanya, one personality is prominent and the other two are just enjoying the reciprocation and the emotion. So that prominent personality may change from time to time. But basically the three entities are sort of just enjoying the rasa they have with Krishna, with Lord Chaitanya in different ways. So this is Ramananda Roy. So Ramananda Roy also had 4 brothers. So, and their father was Bhavananda Roy. So upon meeting Bhavananda Roy, the father of these sons, Lord Chaitanya said, he revealed to Bhavananda Roy that actually you are Pandu. In Krishna Lila, you're a Pandu, and your 5 sons were the 5 Pandavas. So Ramananda, Gopinath, Vananath, Kalanidhi, and Sudanidhi. These are the 5 Pandavas. So you have Pandu and the 5 Pandavas. They're appearing in Lord Chaitanya Lila as Bhavananda Roy and his 5 sons, of which Ramananda Roy was the prominent one. So Lord Chaitanya took sannyas in the month of Magh, which is sort of January, February, and arrived in Puri in Orissa on the east coast of India during the month of Falgun, just the following month. And after celebrating Dol Yatra in Puri, Mahaprabhu delivered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in the month of Chaitra. In the month of Vishak, he set off on pilgrimage to South India, and as he was leaving, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested him to, when he was in South India, to visit Ramananda Roy, who you'll find him, he takes bath on the banks of the Godavari River. So Ramananda Roy was the governor of Madras at that time. But of course, he was a very saintly person. He had regular bathes on the banks of the Godavari River. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested, please try to visit Ramananda Roy. So Lord Chaitanya set off on his travels, and he eventually got to the Godavari River, and he took his bath, and then it was just in the late afternoon, and he come out and just waited for him. And eventually Ramananda Roy came, and because he was a governor, there was a big entourage who was being coloured in a palanquin. But he saw Mahaprabhu's supernatural form as he was getting down from the palanquin. And so Mahaprabhu immediately recognized that this is his dear servant, Arjuna. So Ramananda Roy, he just had an etiquette. He identified himself. He said, I'm just a lowly Sudra servant. And but they immediately embraced and were feeling great emotional ecstasy. And this was sort of, because Ramananda Roy, he had his Brahmin advisors with him, and they were so astonished that this young effulgent sannyasi was embracing this, to the Brahmana's eyes, this Sudra, governor, and obviously experiencing great spiritual bliss. So they were quite surprised to see this. But anyway, while Lord Chaitanya was there, he spent 10 days there discussing spiritual matters with Ramananda Roy, Vijayanagara. And so I mentioned the Chaitanya Charitamrita, a very significant discussion that Lord Chaitanya asked Ramananda Roy. He said, how to attain the ultimate goal of life. So Ramananda Roy, of course, he started with Varnashram Dharma. By following your worldly duties, you can achieve the ultimate goal of life. And Lord Chaitanya said, oh, this is okay, but if you know more, please tell me more. And so then he went to Gnana Mishra Bhakti, so philosophical speculation and devotional service, mixed. Mishra means mixed. So this was like the next stage in one sense. And then he went through, Gnana Bhakti, and then eventually to Prema Bhakti, and then eventually to Radha Prema. And above that, Krishna Tattva, Radha Krishna, Prema Tattva. So different levels of pure love of Godhead. Each time Lord Chaitanya was saying, yeah, that's nice, but if you know more, please speak more. And Ramananda Roy was becoming astonished that he'd never experienced these words coming out of his mouth. Even though he was speaking them, he couldn't understand how they were coming. But he could understand Lord Chaitanya was speaking to him through Ramananda's mouth like that. And so Ramananda Roy eventually said, without adopting the mood of the gopis and following in their footsteps, one cannot enter the confidential pastimes of Radha and Krishna. There is no other way to achieve the service of Radha and Krishna within the pleasure groves of Vrindavan. And he went on that the gopis don't have any desire for their own personal sense gratification. Their minds and bodies exist only for Krishna's enjoyment. That's why the gopis of Vrindavan are considered the topmost devotees. Because as soon as they hear Krishna's flute, even though it's at night time and their wives and mothers and their responsibility with their family and their husbands, as soon as they hear Krishna's flute, immediately they drop everything and go. They just, because their love is so pure and so unadulterated that nothing takes precedent over Krishna's, over their love for Krishna. So, so that conversation came to a conclusion after 10 days. Lord Chaitanya understood that this is definitely the topmost conclusion that Ramananda Roy is giving to them. So Prabhupada comments on this conversation in different places. He mentions that once fixed in this conclusion, one can progressively gain the qualifications to proceed through each various step described by Ramananda Roy. This holds true even though bhakti itself is completely independent and may manifest in an individual through the association of saintly persons, despite one's having no prior qualifications or having gone through these prior steps. So as I said, mentioned earlier, no material prerequisite or qualification is required. So the next evening, I think it was just before Lord Chaitanya was leaving, Ramananda Roy visited Lord Chaitanya, paid his obeisances, and then Mahaprabhu finally fondly embraced him, began questioning as follows. So here's another list of questions again that he asked. What is the best education among all kinds of learning? Ramananda Roy responded, devotion for Krishna is by far the best learning. And he asked, what is the achievement, the highest achievement of a living being? The best glory is to take the post of a servant of Radha and Krishna. Which creature suffers the most? A devotee who is suffering due to separation from the Lord. This is considered the topmost suffering when you're bereft from Krishna's association of devotees. Who is the most liberated person? One who loves Krishna is the most liberated person. So many different questions and answers are going on. So Ramananda Roy, him and Swarup Damodar, they were two of the most intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya, in particular the last years of Lord Chaitanya's appearance in this world. He spent in the Gambhira room, which is a small room in one temple in Puri, and he just spent his time there just chanting Krishna's names and remembering even though he's Krishna himself, still in the role of the devotee, he was just absorbed in pure love of Krishna. And even though it's mentioned that at that time there was 3 doors that were closed, were shut, Gambhira room, still sometimes Lord Chaitanya would get out somehow or other and they'd find him wandering around Puri or on the beach, just absorbed in love of Krishna. So many different amazing pastimes are going on. Last time I went to Puri, the first time I went there, you could go into the Gambira room, and it was a very amazing, as you could imagine, sort of atmosphere there. Lord Chaitanya spent so many years, but now it's closed off. For some reason, you can't go in there. But there's a little window you can sort of look in. It's only a very small room, but very sacred place. Lord Chaitanya spent his time. So eventually, when Lord Chaitanya was leaving Ramananda Roy to continue on his pilgrimage around India, he asked Ramananda to abandon his involvement with government service and join him in Puri when he returned. So when the king of Puri heard that Ramananda Roy wished to return to Puri in order to be close to Mahaprabhu, because the king himself, he was a great devotee, so he was very happy to grant him permission, and he allowed him to leave his duties in the government. And even though he was out of that service, still the king arranged to continue paying his full wage, so that Ramananda Roy wouldn't have any difficulty in this way. And at that time, after finishing his talk, Ramananda Roy saw something never seen before. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed himself as both Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna. And seeing this, Ramananda Roy fell unconscious in transcendental bliss. So you can see that picture in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Radha and Krishna behind and Lord Chaitanya in front. So that's Radha Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. That Radha Krishna is non-different from Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya appeared in a golden form in the mood of the devotee, in the mood of Radharani, and playing the role of a topmost devotee. So in Ramananda Roy, he just fainted in transcendental bliss seeing that vision. So in many different ways, Ramananda Roy and his other associates, they were always tending to Lord Chaitanya's needs, and according to the different mood and emotion Lord Chaitanya was experiencing, these different devotees would chant different verses or sing different songs to sort of bring out the essence, the topmost essence of those moods, to support those moods that Lord Chaitanya was experiencing. So in his Gambira room, Lord Chaitanya would stay up all night enraptured in Srimati Radharani's mood of separation from her beloved Shama Shundra, singing the poems of Vijayapati, Chandidas, and others. Ramananda Roy would delight Lord Gauranga, Lord Chaitanya, with his enchanting melodies. And also Krishnadas Kaviraj says that when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt intense pains of separation from Sri Krishna, only Ramananda's talks about Krishna and Sri Damodar's sweet songs kept him alive. And we'll just end here with quote Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. He comments that Ramananda Roy externally is a grihasta on the Pravriti Marg, engaged in an active life in the world. Ramananda Roy accepted the household estate as his role in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was thus a Krishna Vishayi, one who seeks only the pleasure of Krishna's senses and not his own. No one can fully describe the extent of Ramananda's spiritual power. So normally Vishayi means one who's a sense enjoyer, a materialist. But when you're a Krishna Vishayi, you're only interested in Krishna's pleasure. So Ramananda Roy, he departed on this day 500 odd years ago. Lord Chaitanya left this world before Ramananda. So Ramananda, he was still experiencing great lamenting in so much separation. Lord Chaitanya had disappeared. So we'll end there. Thank you very much. If there's any questions or comments at all? I think Vaishnavi had a hand up, sorry.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. In the purport, it says, although a devotee may apparently express himself to be ignorant, he is full of knowledge in every intricate matter. I was just thinking that when there was a Pandit who was challenging Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, and they just admitted defeat without arguing or going into debate, and yet Jiva Goswami, he debated with him and he defeated him. So what is the criteria for a devotee to keep quiet and just feign ignorance and just go on with their devotional service instead of disturbing the whole situation? And in which case would they need to stand up and defend the Vaishnava?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mean, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they weren't interested in debating, just trying to develop their own, prestige or standing, which is what the scholar was trying to do, thinking if I can get the patra or the certificate to say that I've defeated Rupa and Sanatan, I'll be the greatest scholar. So it was simply pride and arrogance. But Rupa and Sanatan, this is just a waste of time. Okay, I'll just sign it, off you go, and they couldn't care about their own prestige. But Jiva Goswami, he wasn't thinking of his own prestige either, but he wanted to defend Rupa and Sanatan's position, because they were obviously, he saw them as his spiritual superiors, almost like spiritual master. And of course, they were his uncles. So he was seeing they were his superiors in any way. So he wanted to defend their position just as a disciple would want to defend the spiritual master's position. So just to glorify his own spiritual elders, he engaged in debate. So that's how to understand that. So for us, if we a devotee is being criticised or whatever, we might feel, well, no, you've got the wrong understanding. But if we're being criticised out of humility, say, oh, whatever, you're sort of out of humility. You don't try to, out of your own pride, try to defend yourself. So that's the proper mentality, So Jiva Goswami is not in the wrong in that sense. He was just trying to develop to protect and defend his spiritual elder's position, but it wasn't out of his own pride. Is that all right? You have a question? Just get the mic.
Thank you, Prabhu. This conversation is between Maitreya and Vidura, but where is the Sukha Watch comes from?
So Sukadeva Goswami is speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, and this is the conversation that they're relating.
Okay.
So in the Bhagavatam, there's three primary conversations between, in the first chapters, we hear Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages in Namashranya. And sometimes the conversation, because he was there, Sutta Goswami was there when Sukadeva Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. So he heard that conversation. So sometimes he's relating that conversation, Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit, to the sages in Namashranya, and sometimes he's relating the conversation of Maitreya and Vidura.
Okay, but never it says Maitreya's Uvacha, never says that? Is there a word like
Oh, I'm sure there's some verses that say that, but it's Sukadeva Goswami relating this conversation. So we're hearing from the mouth of Sukadeva Goswami the conversation between Maitreya and, sometimes it gets a little bit complicated, who's speaking to who, when, sort of thing. But
Maitreya speaking to Vidura?
Yes.
Sukha
is relating that conversation. Yeah.
To Parikshit Maharaj.
Parikshit Maharaj on the banks of the Ganges.
And the conversation is happening in Sutta Goswami
And Sutta Goswami is speaking to the sages in Namashranya, and that was after Maharaj Parikshit had departed. Yeah. So yeah, it does get a little bit complicated, but who's speaking to who when? But that's the understanding of this situation. Anything else? Yes, Chris. Yes.
Just to mention, he was working as a governor, but as he became more attached to Lord Chaitanya, King Prataparudra became very pleased, and he allowed him to retire young, and granted him a full pension.
Yeah, I did mention that actually.
He did. Oh,
Yeah.
I must have been nodding off at that time, and then that's how he was able to do that. So
Yeah. No,
Thank you.
for that. Yeah, no, he's an amazing personality, Roy.
The second part of his name is sort of like a qualification, isn't it? Is that right?
Roy, yeah, I guess it's like a, he was, materially he was a governor. So you hear Subudhi Roy, Ramananda Roy, it's some sort of position, but the technical understanding, actually what that means, but some sort of material position in the government. Okay, thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.